Hello, critics, non-critics, and friends. Welcome to the Film Optix podcast, where we take a glance into blockbusters, indie films, and everything in between. I'm your host, Christian, and as always, I'm joined by my partner in film, Devin. And today, we're going to be giving our spoiler-free thoughts and insights on the latest film in the Evil Dead franchise, titled Evil Dead Rise. And before we begin today's episode, you can listen to our podcast on podcast platforms around the internet. That includes Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. And if you are a new or seasoned listener to the show, we would love to hear from you guys. Follow us on Instagram and follow us on Twitter at Film Optix. That is Optix with an X. Or you can email us at filmoptix@gmail.com for any movie-related questions. Devin, how's your week been, buddy? It's finally Friday. Thank God.
We finally made it to Friday. What a weird week.
It's been a long one, man, for sure. But hey, I'm 1 week closer to moving into my new place. But yeah, how's your week been overall? You've been pumping the gym, chilling, working.
Yeah, all those things.
Your dad had a birthday. Is it yesterday or 2 days ago?
Yeah, it's a very, very special birthday that not many people have the honor of having. It was yesterday.
Yeah. Did you get him anything nice, or you guys just kind of chill? Or
he's currently out of town, so I'll figure out something when he gets back.
Oh, you didn't buy your dad a gift yet? Devin, for shame. Well,
he's got to be here to receive it, so it gives me a little more time.
I guess so. We'll give it a pass on that. You're definitely getting the luxury of having those extra days, figuring out something for him. But did your sister get him anything yet, or she's kind of doing the same thing you are?
It's a good question. I'll have to ask. Maybe we can double team it.
Yeah, go halvesies on a gift. Get him something nice. He deserves it for sure. Absolutely. But yeah, I'm glad you've had a pretty chill week. I know it's been a long one for sure. I haven't really, outside of, we watched Renfields, been doing stuff for the podcast. I'm really just focusing on moving altogether. I got a few more things to watch that I have received in the mail. But outside of that, yeah, nothing too crazy. I'm just happy the weekend is here. That's all I care about right now. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we mentioned before, we're going to be giving our spoiler-free thoughts on Evil Dead Rise. This way, everyone can just listen to our episode without running into spoilers. This movie is not super long at all. So we're going to get into our initial reactions first, which is our non-spoiler section. Then we'll get into our final thoughts and our ratings for this film. And then we will close out with that segment. So without further delay, we'll be right back after this introduction to Evil Dead Rise.
When I was just a little girl, I asked my mother,
"What is this, Danny?" I found it.
Will I be pretty? Will I be rich? Here's what she said to me.
It's me.
Don't let it take my babies.
And we are back with our Evil Dead Rise review. You just heard a little snippet from the trailer. Of course, this movie, if you do not know, is written and directed by Lee Cronin. And the synopsis is as follows. A twisted tale of two estranged sisters whose reunion is cut short by the rise of flesh-possessing demons thrusting themselves into a primal battle for survival as they face the most nightmarish version of family imaginable.
Now that's a synopsis.
That really is like, oh my gosh. And I've said this before on other episodes. I kind of stray away from the whole like, you know, exorcist, demon, possessing stuff. But Evil Dead is kind of campy in that way. So I don't mind it as much, especially my road to Evil Dead Rise that I've been mentioning here in the podcast. I've been going through every single Evil Dead film in the franchise. And this one definitely is up there. It's very freaky. I don't know if it's as scary as it was for the remake for me, but we'll get into that here in a second. This movie stars Anna-Maree Thomas, Richard Crouchley, and Mirabai Pease. So we got some new faces, a lot of new faces actually. At least on my side. I think minus one person who looks somewhat familiar. But we'll talk about that here in a second. But I'm going to pass it over to Devin so we can give his initial reactions to Evil Dead Rise.
Yeah, I've been a pretty big Evil Dead fan for a while now. It's just one of those movies where your parents like it and then they kind of pass it on down to you because it was part of their childhoods. They want to put it on you, and it just happens to be a very messed up series of movies, but it's enjoyable nonetheless. I'm glad you're on the train now. It is the most consistent horror franchise.
Whoa, I would say Scream is the most consistent horror franchise in my opinion.
Scream 3 is pretty rough.
I mean, it's not the best, but it's pretty. I mean, it's
there's no bad in Evil Dead. There's nothing been bad that's been made.
I didn't think Scream 3 was bad. It's just different. Like, it's not my favorite, but I don't think it's bad. But anyway, first, hold on. Before you go on, who in your family passed this down to you? Was it?
Yeah, my dad's a big fan of the original, so he made sure I was aware of it. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. I'm sorry. Continue with your spoiler-free thoughts.
So yeah, I've been a fan ever since that. Just kind of watched the originals and kind of appreciate it. And that's kind of a lot of people's introduction to Sam Raimi too, because that's where he first started. And just seeing his direction and his point of view, and how he just kind of got everything started in the world of horror. It's always cool to see. As far as this movie goes, there's a lot to like because I think they did a really good job of modernizing the story. Whereas the 2013 remake was more so like a retelling of the original. This one kind of brings it more into the modern age, like changes the setting and the scenery and everything to make it more so a modern telling of it instead of just a retelling, which I think they did a really good job of. And I like how they incorporated children into this one for the first time. There haven't really ever been kids in an Evil Dead movie, and it's not very kind to them, I'll say that much. So if you have issues with kids being harmed, then you might not want to watch this one because it's pretty brutal. And obviously there's a lot of blood. It's a bloody good time. That's what I mentioned on our little DM. I think I saw in the trivia that there was 11,000 or like 17,000 gallons of blood used in this movie.
Wow, that's a lot. That is
like you can't even fathom that much being used. Not 17,000. Sorry, 1,700. But still.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's still a lot, yeah. I mean, 17,000 is like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Lee Cronin, what are you doing?
Yeah, I also wanted to mention I'd never seen or heard of Lee Cronin before, but this is definitely a good introduction to him because I think he did a really good job. I looked up his filmography, but I haven't heard of any of the other ones he's done.
So is this like his first horror dip into horror, or is this like
he's done other horror, but this is definitely his biggest like dive. Apparently he's Irish.
Oh. And so I did not realize that for Evil Dead, for my viewing for this, it's not that I didn't like the movie, but my experience with the movie was so bad because I went to Regal to see this. And I'm not sure if people know this about Regal. I'm not sure if this was like a one-time thing that happened in my Regal theater. I went to the 7:00, the early or the quote unquote early bird showing, the previews on Thursday. And the movie just started at 7. There was no trailers whatsoever. I was shocked.
That's weird. We had like 25 minutes worth.
Did you go to Regal or did you go to AMC? Or did you go somewhere else? Cinemark. Okay. Yeah. I don't know if it's like a Regal thing. If anyone out there knows, definitely tweet at us at Film Optix to let us know if you go to like Thursday night previews, if they play trailers or not, because it was weird. Like I sat down, I'm like, okay, we'll probably get like 15, 20 minutes of trailers. And then the Warner Brothers logo just started. And I was like, oh, we're starting. But my experience with the movie was so bad, not because the movie was bad, it's because of the people that I saw it with. Literally, in my entire row, like everyone around me was just talking the entire time. And I have no problem with people reacting, when, someone gets killed or something crazy happens or something funny happens. That happens all the time. That is normal. 100% that is normal. But people were just, they were being like, oh, that's very obnoxious. And it was just not a pleasant experience for me watching this movie, especially on Thursday. People were kind of like laughing at parts where like they definitely weren't funny. Like when it came to the aunt, because she is a guitar technician in the in the story, which I think is very modern. We don't really get to see that profession as much in storytelling or just movies and TVs in general. So I think that was job well done. Much like Devin said, modernizing it for 2023. But it was there was these people literally like right next to me, behind me, in front of me, mainly the people to like the right of me. They were just so obnoxious, just like talking to the entire, they're like, oh, that's so stupid. I'm like, I mean, yeah, like whatever. Like if you think about something, that's fine. But it's like everything that they were thinking, they were just blurting out. And it was just not a good experience. But from what the movie standpoint, I do agree with Devin. Like I said before, I was not a big horror person growing up. And Devin knows this because we known each other for God knows how many years. And I mean, I've been able to, lean into it now. I felt, kind of, it was weird because I felt like comfortable just sitting there watching this movie. I was like, oh God, what have I turned into? But overall, I loved the relationship between the two sisters, the three kids, the whole, broken family aspect, and how there was something here that we got to see unfold during the beginning of the movie. It's a bit of nonlinear storytelling, but it was, the beginning was cool. I was just like, okay, what did that part serve to the story? It was obviously, everything that happened like the night before type situation. But, it's just one of those kind of movies. But yeah, a lot of blood, like Devin said, a lot of jump scares, like a lot of good jump scares for sure. Nothing like it didn't feel cheap when it came to the jump scares, but I did enjoy the story. And it was just, all the crazy stuff that happens at night, Dead by Dawn type situation. And I always find it funny how someone always ends up finding like this Book of the Dead. And then it's just, they just look into it and they're like, oh, this looks totally normal. And it's like, but it's the funniest thing because there are a lot of funny moments in this movie.
Yeah, I was reading up on the Book of the Dead thing. The director mentioned that in the original Evil Dead, it was mentioned that there were 3 books total in the world. So in his brain, his mind, canon, he said the Sam Raimi trilogy had their own book, and then the 2013 had a different book. Now this one gets the 3rd book. So they're not all connected or tied together, but they could have happened in the same universe.
Interesting. Okay. That when you put it that way, and I didn't even realize when I was watching the original Evil Dead that was even mentioned. But yeah, you get the chainsaw action and there is always, and it's like Devin said, he had texted me saying it was a bloody good time. It was super, super crazy.
I think it's interesting that you said that there were a lot of jump scares. I didn't really notice many. I think that's one of the better parts of it, that didn't rely on the jump scares. It was more so just classic, freaking you out, creepy, a
lot of creepy stuff.
Completely gory, crazy things that you've never seen before.
Yes, I do agree. There is more gore. I think when I had mentioned a little bit ago about jump scares, I guess that was just from what the audience with me, there was I think it was one time I jumped But like I said, look, I've seen all these other movies already, and so I'm kind of like not desensitized, but I'm just used to it by now. But I think it was more of everyone else reacting to certain things, especially the mother of the three children.
Yeah, we gotta shout her out because her actress was really good. What's her name? Alyssa Sutherland. She's Australian. Yes. I found out.
She is Australian. Yeah.
And she actually absolutely killed this role because just the way she looks, like she's got a vibe about her. And then when she turns into the Deadite, it just so well done.
It really was. I mean, in the fact that like, these aren't just like, I guess, they are possessed. Like I was going to say zombies, but it's like, no, they're not. I mean, they kind of are, but they're not. Like,
it's kind of a combination of possessed and zombies because they can pass it along to other people, but also They have consciousness and can speak and have knowledge of many things. They can read books without looking. I thought that was really cool in the beginning. I really liked the opening scene, actually. That title card with the rise and the loud music, that was so cool.
That was pretty sweet. Yeah, that was honestly like with any horror movie you have the opening kill, and it's like, okay, like for Scream, like what's the opening kill for Scream, and then for this, it's like, yeah, we have this, and it's awesome. The original Evil Deads, I would say, at least the first two are very slow, like more of a slow build up to crazy stuff that happens. Yeah, definitely when it comes to this versus like 2013, I think I do prefer this one over 2013. I mean, like you said, 2013 was more so of a remake, and they kind of had their own small little stories there because these stories are kind of just perfect where you can just tell like these single contained stories of these people who end up somehow finding the book no matter what, and then stuff just goes sideways like at night when it comes to all that stuff. But definitely a horror movie for anyone who was a horror fan too. I recommend. I think my mom is actually seeing a movie today, but it is not going to be anything horror. She doesn't like anything horror whatsoever. So I had to kind of lean into it. I was like, yeah, it's actually not that bad once once you're used to it and once you kind of start watching stuff. But again, I will never watch Insidious and or Sinister ever again. I'm not watching that new Insidious movie. No, I am good to go. But did you have anything else, Devin, that you wanted to mention as we are talking about the Evil Dead Rise franchise all together? Actually, where does this rank for you when it comes to, I mean, I don't know when was the last time you actually watched these, but I'm curious.
Yeah, I think it's been a while since I watched the original three. And I don't even know if I've seen the remake since it came out, but I didn't really think about rankings. But I think that the couple things that set this one apart from the others is obviously you mentioned it's more modernized, and I also think that they did a really smart thing by bringing the family element into it, because that kind of raises the stakes of everything. Because instead of just kind of random teenagers in a cabin that you don't really care about getting killed off, it's actually like members of a family that you could have some emotional pull towards, and that kind of makes everything a little bit more intense and crazy when things start to hit the fan. Especially the very young actress. I thought she did a really good job. Her name was Nell Fisher.
Yeah, she did a fantastic job. Also, I detected a little bit of Last of Us vibes there towards the end. I'm not sure if you caught that, but I was like, ooh, this is, like we're in it now. But I don't know, just a few small
I was actually
scenes.
getting the end scene. I was getting like Resident Evil vibes, like the whole.
Oh, that too.
The parking garage setup they had kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. But yeah, this movie was, I actually liked it. Surprisingly, I slept pretty well. After I saw 2013 Evil Dead remake, I had a hard time sleeping that night. I'm not going to lie. But for this one, I slept like a baby.
Did you throw away your cheese grater?
I don't have a cheese grater, thank God.
Good.
So there was also I kind of cringe every time I see like a glass of wine now. So thank you.
Yep.
But let's get into our final thoughts and ratings here. I'll pass it back over to Devin so we can give his final thoughts and ratings for Evil Dead Rise.
Yeah, all in all, I don't really have too many complaints about this one. It's really short, like all of them have been. That's kind of part of the allure. And I think think we both mentioned the opening scene where they did the classic, you show the ending at the beginning. But I think this one, it was pretty warranted because it does take a little bit to get into the flow of things for this one. So kind of showing that first kill and getting the action started at the beginning. I think without that, it would have definitely been a bit too slow of a start. So I think that was very smart of them to do. Overall, I do think it's interesting that the first three Evil Dead movies were definitely more on the campy side, and then these two remakes have been like, more so full-blown horror, like definitely a lot less silly and goofy than the first three. It's kind of just how the times are going recently in horror, I would guess. Which could definitely be a thing where the fans of the original just don't really connect because there's not that like goofy, campy side. But other than that, like I just think they did such a good job of bringing it to the present, and the new setting. It's similar with Scream 6, where you give a really cool new setting. It just kind of changes everything for you. Like they did New York City for Scream 6, and this one was like a high-rise apartment building. Like that's just such a cool setting to have a horror movie.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, and you feel like they're actually trapped because they are, and it's a very scary situation. But yeah, I totally agree.
And for my theater experience was definitely a little more positive than yours. It sounds like I had next to the right of me there were a couple of girls. I couldn't tell how old they were, but they were like covering their eyes and being squeamish the whole time. I think one of them had that thing where if you watch a horror movie, you laugh at all the scary parts. Like some people have that as like a coping mechanism, like built in. I think one of them had that because there was a lot of laughter going on. But when I would look over, they would like cover their eyes and like be squeamish. So
I think that's what happened in my theater, where there were people laughing at some of the gorier parts.
Some people laugh at horror movies just because they don't know what else to do, because it is scary and they just kind of are shocked and they just laugh.
So Devin, what is your final score for Evil Dead Rise?
Evil Dead Rise, I think my final score would have to be somewhere around like an 86. Like I said, I don't really have much to complain about. It does take a little bit to get into the actual madness of the story, but once you're in it, it just takes you for that ride and doesn't really let go until the end. And then even then, it keeps holding on to you. I loved, like I said, the modernization of this one, how they brought in the family elements. Even just bringing in kids to this one just brings that whole other level of intensity that the other ones didn't really touch on as much. I think it did a really good job of that and kind of separating itself and differentiating itself from the rest of the franchise.
Yeah. For me, actually, I was coming in and around like an 85, 86. But now that we've talked about this here for a little bit, I'm actually going to give this like a solid 90 because I think this was a really good horror movie.
Wow,
altogether.
There you go.
Yeah. Like I was very, very surprised. Like as far as horror movies go, we've had a few throughout, especially this past year. And I would have to say, I love Army of Darkness. That was so funny, so ridiculous, so over the top. But yeah, this one was like, it was really good. Just felt very claustrophobic for some reason. Like obviously the other movies take place in a cabin outside of Army of Darkness, but there's something about like a rundown apartment building that is going to be foreclosed on. And it's just, on its last leg because they're going to be breaking it down.
There's nowhere to run.
Literally. And it's like, there's something about that. I was like, yeah, they're probably in like, some like Oakland or Compton or something like that in California. And it was just this rundown, crazy hotel or apartment, excuse me. But yeah, I would definitely give this a solid 90. Like, I think this is definitely one of the best horror movies this year. I mean, we'll see if Maxine comes out or not. But yeah, an 86 out of 100 from Devin and a 90 from me. So the overall podcast score, the median of both of our scores is going to be an 88 out of 100. So that is our official collective podcast rating, 88 out of 100 for Evil Dead Rise. And with all that said, that is a wrap on today's episode. If you like what you heard on today's episode, please subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform of choice and make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Film Optix. Again, that is Optix with an X to stay in the know. And make sure to share an episode of our podcast with a friend, whether it be your mother, your brother, or your significant other. Make sure to share an episode of the Film Optix podcast with a movie lover in need. And now let's take a sneak peek of what's coming up next on the show. We have our Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 review. I don't know what else is coming out because honestly right now I'm in the brain of, the mode of moving. But that is something you can definitely look forward to because that does come out May 5th altogether. So we're going to try to get that out for you guys as soon as possible. This has been kind of crazy on our side. But what you can listen to now, you can listen to our Love and Death spoiler-free review of episodes 1 through 3, which will be hitting HBO Max on April 27th altogether. So you can definitely listen to our thoughts about that now. You can also listen to our Renfield review, which is another bloody good time. More so on the comedic side than Evil Dead Rise, but we love to cover all aspects of the horror genre here on the podcast. And you can also listen to our spoiler-free review of the Super Mario Brothers and Suzume all together. So with all that said, thank you all for listening. And remember, if you enjoy the show, leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram to stay in the know. I'm Christian, and that was Devin signing off. And we'll see you guys in the next one.
Peace.